Okay, so this is a video tutorial on how to create the PCB design file for the SoundSensor. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up Easy EDA, and you should have been added to the design group CRT399. Inside the CRT399, you should find the SoundSensor project with both the schematic as well as a variety of board files. You're going to be working on your team's board file, so make sure that you only edit yours. So I am Team Luna, so I'm going to go ahead and open up mine. And one thing to kind of note about mine is a much simplified version of the board. Your boards will have many more components that you will need to route and build a PCB for. So this is just a demo only. Like I said, you'll have many more components that you need to consider. So one of the first things that we want to do is we're going to get familiar with the components that are on the board. So we'll see this large kind of component right here is an ESP32. That's the microcontroller that we're going to be working with. A couple things to note, this kind of squiggle mark right here is the location of the antenna. And that's important to know because on the other side of this is actually where the USB connector will be. And so we'll want to be careful not to kind of place any components down in this area. We'll want to place this edge relatively close to the board so that we'll be able to plug our ESP32 in via USB. So we don't want to block anything right there. Other thing to note, on yours you'll have the sound sensor, you'll have switches, you'll have LEDs. The other thing I want to kind of consider is for these switches, I want to make sure that as I'm kind of placing them around, that I keep in mind kind of the location and direction of the switches, as well as kind of the labels that go on them. So a few other things that I'm going to kind of keep in mind. So I'm going to kind of start to arrange my components around, and I want to kind of try to do so in a way that kind of uses the space efficiently, but not so much that, they're like right on top of each other. So if I'm kind of placing these components around these areas, I don't want to kind of butt them right up against each other. That's going to cause some issues, but I also don't want to put it all the way over here. That's just going to be a big old waste of space. So kind of be thoughtful about your design. You want to design compactly, but you still want to be able to build this PCB when you're done. So I'm going to kind of think about the location of this record switch, and I'm going to actually rotate it. So I'm going to select the component and hit R a few times, and I'm thinking maybe I want to kind of place it, right about here. That seems to be an okay spot. The other thing I want to consider is kind of these light blue lines that you're seeing here. These are rat's nest lines. Those will indicate for us kind of the locations of routing nets that we'll need to wire in. And so as you're kind of arranging your components, kind of be thoughtful about the rotation of your components. Sometimes you can make things where those lines are going to cross a bunch, and that will add to the complexity of your circuit. So there can be ways in which to arrange your components or rotate your components to try to make things as kind of straightforward as possible. So I'm going to place that right about there. I'm going to try to line it up, relatively nicely with my ESP32. I'm also going to take these labels and kind of try to make them a little bit more kind of visible so that I'll know kind of what each component does when I'm ready to build with it. So I'm going to move this U1 inside because I don't need that one as much. Okay, so now at this point, I am ready to kind of think about how to begin connecting all of the rat's nest lines. Now, as I said, you'd want to kind of lay out all the components on yours in a sensible order. Again, make sure that you don't put anything under this area because that's where the USB cable is going to be. And so I want to start kind of making the final connections for my board. To do that, I'm going to come over to Design Manager, and here on Nets, you can see that I have 7 out of the 9 nets completed. Yours will probably be less. But as we add connections, we'll refresh this, and hopefully we'll see the number of nets go up until we have 9 out of 9 nets. Now, the one thing that I want to do is I'm going to open this up, and for now I'm going to turn off the ground net and turn off the VCC net. And so for that, that's going to allow me to kind of really focus on the particular connections that I'm trying to make, and also will simplify the overall design. So we'll get to those ground and those VCC nets really soon. But for now, I just want to kind of see the only nuts that I need to connect. Now, since I have a simplified version, I can see that I have one line to connect, and that's going to be my record line. And so at this point, I'm going to make sure that I'm clicked on the top layer. I'm going to click on this track, and now I'm going to begin to try to make this connection. Now you'll notice as I try to come through here, it's literally preventing me from doing that. And that's because a wire should not be able to run right through the middle of a pin. That would cause a short circuit. And so what you'll notice is I have to actually kind of go around. And as I come up here and here, I'm not super enthused about that right angle there. And so I'm going to select that and delete it. And I'm going to try again. So I'm going to try to only kind of keep good for kind of 45-degree angles to keep my design as kind of slim and neat as possible. So something like that is actually a little bit more preferable when designing a circuit board. So I've kind of completed this net. And so at this point, you'll want to complete all the other, rat's nest lines, those blue lines, until they are completed. Now, for some reason, you come across a point in which you just can't figure out how to get those, wires to connect. You can also design on the bottom layer of the board. Now, we're not going to place any components on the bottom layer, but we can make these connections on the bottom layer of the board. So I'm going to remove this line and show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to click on the bottom layer of the board. And now what I can do is I could come through and I could make these connections on the bottom layer of the board. In that case, it would allow us to kind of cross components. And so for some reason, you're not able to make all the connections to all of your components on the top layer of the board. You can, in fact, go to the bottom layer of the board and complete those components. And so you're going to want to repeat this process of getting rid of all those little light blue rat's nest lines and refresh this until you will get to the point where you have ground and VCC ready to lay in. And so in this particular case, we're now going to turn on all of our nets. Again, yours probably is going to read 7 out of 9. Mine reads 8 out of 9. But in this case, what we can see is we've got a few of these rat's nest lines that have returned. And what we're ready to do now is to create a board outline and then what's called the copper fill. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a board outline. To do that, I'm going to change my snap size to be 5 millimeters. And as I'm making this board outline, I want to keep in mind a couple of things. One, I want to make sure that I leave enough space for some holes to be able to mount on the board into my enclosure. And I'm also going to make some rounded corners. And so to make the board outline, I'm going to come over to this Layers and Objects panel and click on Board Outline. And I'm going to click on this Wire Trace tool. And so I'm going to come out here a little ways. Maybe right about here. And I'm going to come up like so. And then I'm going to draw another line. And this one about like so. Another line about like so. And another line about like so. Now you notice I did not connect these all the way. And that's because I want to include some rounded corners in my design. And so to do that, I'm going to click on this arc center. And I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to kind of click kind of right here where these lines meet. And so I'm going to click once. I'm going to come up and over. It's going to ask me if I want to join those, and I'll say OK. And then I'm going to actually click off of that here onto the wire tool. And I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to click on that tool one more time. Okay, click over, down, down. And I do want to connect those. I'm going to click the wire tool, click the arc tool again. Fill in this corner here, and click OK. Okay. Click the wire tool, click the arc tool, and one more time, and click OK. And so now at this point, I have a nice PCB with some nice rounded edges, but I still need to put some of the holes in there for mounting. And so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click in here. And on this particular case, this is not a big enough hole for the screws that we're going to use. So I'm going to click on that hole and come up over to Hole Properties and click 3 for 3 millimeters. That's a much better sized hole. And now I can come across here and I can change that to 3 millimeters. And come down here. And I can do these and make sure that they are each 3 millimeters. Okay, That's looking pretty good. Okay, so we still have these ground nets to take care of. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on this copper area tool right here. And I'm going to first start with the VCC layer. I'm going to click OK. And to do that, I'm going to click here on the top layer. And I'm going to come out and I'm going to click in this upper left-hand corner on the outside of the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to right-click, and it's going to fill this entire area in with copper. That's going to connect all the VCCs. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the bottom layer of the board. I'm going to go to that copper area. This time I'm going to choose ground. Okay, and then I'm going to come slightly out further, and I messed that up, so I'm going to undo that. Let's try that again. Copper area, ground. Okay, so slightly outside the copper line that I just did. So click, 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 and then right click, and then it's going to fill in that bottom side with another layer of copper that's going to take care of all of our ground connections. So now if I refresh this, I should see that I've got 9 out of 9 connections. So you should continue working with your board until you get all 9 out of 9. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to hit this refresh on DRC errors. So that's what's called the design rules check error. And if I refresh that, we should have 0. If for some reason you get some errors in there, a couple things that you'll want to double check for. It may be that you're running these little traces too close to other pads. It could be that when you did your copper and ground fills, that you have some areas that have giant holes. These are called islands, and they may not be able to reach all the different parts of your board. And so for that, you may need to redo some of your traces in order to get it to all the areas that it needs to. Now, that being said, we're almost done, but we still need to kind of put our name on our board. And so we're going to go to the bottom silk layer. So that's this green area right here. We're going to click the ticks tool. And in this particular case, we're going to name this the Luna sound sensor. You'll want to change it to your name. So if you are Ganymede or Callisto, you'll want to change it to the Ganymede sound sensor. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to place that on the board like so. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save. So I'll go File, Save, or you can hit Control S or Command S. And so with our nets all done, no DRC errors, we're looking really good. Last thing we need to do is we need to take care of our documentation. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on 2D here, and I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to take a few screenshots of kind of what I have going on here. And so I'm going to turn off the visible grid, and I'm actually going to change the background to white, and that's going to let me take a nice screenshot for my website. You can change it to a different color if that seems to fit your style. And so at this point then, we will take a screenshot of this, and then I'm going to go to the bottom side and take a screenshot of this. So I'll want a screenshot of the front and back for the website. If you want to get fancy, you can also change it to a cool color of the board or something like that. So, something that's going to be more visible maybe than that. And so, so at that point then, after we've screenshotted both the front and back, we can come back, and then there's one more screenshot that I'd like for us to take, and that's going to be in a 3D view. And so at this point then, we can kind of look at our 3D view. I'm going to kind of pose it in a kind of a nice little kind of isometric view. Again, I'm going to change the background for my website just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. And then I'll take a screenshot from a few different angles for my website. So just to kind of show off the overall design of it. Once you have completed that and you have all your documentation, you will want to come and see me during my office hours for a PCB review or during class time if you've finished it instead. And at that point, we will get it shipped off for manufacturing. So it's really important that you kind of, again, as you're designing, make sure that all of these numbers line up appropriately. That'll give you the best chance of having a functional board when you are done. And that's really what we're going for. So again, this is going to be how you're going to design your board. This was a small sample. Again, yours will be a little bit more complicated, but this kind of walks you through all the different steps that you'll need to do. If you have questions, feel free to ask me, and good luck designing your boards. And that's it.